Watching The Money Show, and on Wednesday we have a special segment for you. It's called Wheels Wednesday, and this is where you get to know about cars, bikes, what have you. We're talking about electric cars today. My guest is Renuka Kirpalani, the executive editor at Autocar. Thank you so much, as always, Renuka, for taking the time. This is something we're speaking about a lot more of late than we have over past several years. Would you say that there are enough options to talk about now, and there's something for everybody, in that earlier it was a little too expensive to consider going for an electric car?
Thanks, Alex. Always a pleasure to be here with you on the show. I wouldn't go as far as saying that there is something for everybody, but sure, there are definitely more and more accessible and affordable EVs than before, especially with Tata taking the lead in this department. I mean, earlier than that, we just did not have anything that was very accessible. Another thing that's made the EVs a lot more accessible now is with this FAME 2 policy coming in. A lot of the states have offered great incentives on EVs. So, when you take something like a Tata Nexon EV, it's just about 2 lakhs more than the regular diesel EV. So, prices have become a lot closer. It's not such a huge difference to an EV. So I think, yeah, EVs are definitely getting more accessible, and Tata have done a great job in bringing it, I think, closer to people and making them more affordable.
What about the technology, Renuka? And this is something that you study on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Has it reached the point where people look at it as a legitimate option and an alternative to internal combustion? Or should one wait for a couple more years because the technology seems to be developing so fast?
Look, this technology, I mean, like your phones, your batteries kept getting smaller and smaller and phones kept getting slimmer and slimmer. This is going to happen with cars as well. Battery technology for cars still has a long way to go. But I think, for today's purpose and practicality, and especially if you are just using it for a city commute, they're hugely practical. And I think, yeah, you can buy one today. Yes, if you're going long distance, there still is a certain amount of range anxiety, and that is more so because we also don't have the infrastructure. If you see countries abroad, people are buying EVs quite easily and running them, quite some distances, but range is still not developed as much as, say IC engines, and the charging facilities are not as easily accessible as fuel stations. So that still has a long way to go. And in our country, particularly, it has some time to develop, and that will take its time. But if you're looking at city commute, I'd say an EV, especially considering today's fuel prices, is hugely practical.
Another factor to consider, I'm just remembering what I saw on social media. Hormuz, I think, posted this. You had an EV day and you ran quite a few vehicles. A lot of people came in with a variety of options. All of those are not necessarily what you would consider. So I'm just trying to identify, Renuka, by talking to you, what are the 4 or 5 options that someone can consider, if you can name them, and the ranges or the prices that one would have to pay?
Begin with the way that they were launched in chronological order. I mean, first came the Kona EV. Then you had the MG ZS EV. Then you had the Tata Nexon EV. After that, Mercedes-Benz launched their EQC. Jaguar came in with the I-Pace. Audi came in with their e-tron. And of late, we've seen the Tigor EV. We also had cars that are coming up in the future there. We had the Volvo XC40 Recharge. We had the Tesla also over there, and these are brands that are going to be there, and you will be seeing more and more EVs. I think a lot of the brands have realized that yes, the consumer is ready. Infra will take time to catch up, but sure, if you bring in an EV, there is a certain amount of audience for it. And attracting a lot of attention there also was, the very hot looking Audi e-tron GT RS that has been launched. So in the sports car category as well, you're seeing it now.
Now, the other factor, and you've mentioned it, the infrastructure, but in terms of the availability right now of what we have, you're primarily looking at charging it either at your workplace or at home, and most of the time you're talking about at home. How important is it for you to have a facility? I believe that Tata also provides an option for you to have an extended cable that can go to your car. Is it practical? Is it something that you can actually consider doing?
Oh, most definitely. You can plug your car into a 15 amp charger and charge it. So it's as easy as that. As long as you have access to a 15 amp point, you can. If you want a fast charger or something, then you need to have a three-phase line, which may not be available everywhere. But something as simple as a 15 amp point can charge your car overnight. And honestly, Alex, when I first got the EQC for a test drive, I was really paranoid and I wanted to set up the charger at home. And then, it was just a question of drawing the line and getting it for a short while. So I didn't do it. And I was getting this massive range anxiety. Then I used the car for the whole week and realized I didn't need to charge the damn thing. So, if you're doing a city commute, you probably need to charge once in a week, especially if you're doing just an office and back run and it's not a large distance. In cities, EVs perform better because you're getting a lot of that brake regen in that stop start traffic as well. You're not really, putting your foot down on the accelerator and getting up to high speed. So you get a lot more out of the battery in city conditions. So I think, like I said, if you're doing it for office commutes, your daily runs, it's still a very practical choice.
That somebody does do this, and incidentally, I'm actually seeing a lot more EVs on the street than I did even last year. But assuming that someone listens to us, Renuka, and they're convinced with the argument that you placed, in terms of, and I've actually done the math, it is significantly cheaper to run an electric vehicle if you actually can.
Yeah.
But assuming that they bite and they say that I'm going to do this, what do they have to bear in mind in terms of the longevity, say, of the vehicle, in terms of the running cost of the vehicle, in terms of the care that they need to take off the vehicle?
So EVs are generally really easy to maintain. There's not much that you have to do with that car. I mean, you will definitely have regular service intervals for all the running parts like you do in other cars, but it's a lot less because you just don't have all the whole internal combustion engine. So there's a lot less to worry about, like, oil filters and fuel filters and things like that. Basically, it's your battery that's the main player in that car, and the electric motors. I think a lot of the companies are offering you great warranty schemes on the batteries. Everybody knows this is an early adoption phase, so they're trying to make the consumer as comfortable as possible. Like I said, governments, especially Maharashtra government, is given great incentives on EVs at the moment. So I think, get that fear out of your mind. If you are going on a long trip, plan ahead so you know where all the charging stations are. There are apps available now. A lot more charging stations are coming up on the highways and at petrol pumps and fuel pumps like we see. There are many available apps. All your car manufacturer apps will also show you where the closest charging stations are. Almost all manufacturers are putting up that have EVs are putting up charging stations at their service centers and allowing every EV owner to use it. So what I would say is the things to do is not really worry about it. If you're in the city, go ahead and buy an EV. Make sure that your building is allowing you to put in the charging point, because as of now, a lot of societies are not allowing these electrical connections because it's still not sure how the billing, meter, etc. goes. If you have a facility to connect it to your own meter and put in a point, I don't think anybody can object to you. So these are the few things to worry about. So ask first if you'll be allowed to put in a charging point for where you charge your car, and then I think it really isn't much of an issue. And like I said, if you're going on a long trip, just do a little bit of planning ahead, and you'll still be able to do it.
Always a pleasure speaking with you. And in terms of caring for the environment, I hope that you've convinced at least a few people to go electric. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks a lot, Alex.